How's
Let me
everybody?
I'm going to squat down here and get the camera for a minute. We're doing really good. This is a group of from early childhood, I guess, all the way through high school teachers who are just they're GT with their kids. They have GT kids. Some of them pull out, some of them in a classroom, but they're really passionate about trying to figure out the best way to integrate technology and what it would mean to give the kids voice and choice and the concept behind Genius Hour. And so, of course, you're my best friend with the best knowledge on this topic, and I just said you need to talk to Dawn, not to Christy Kate. So we have a couple people that are viewing it, and so we want you to just have fun and talk to them, and I'm going to move out of the way so you can see who you're talking to.
Okay. Well, first of all, we've gotten a couple tweets that I guess the original. Let me copy and paste this. I've got a couple people that said they want to join, and so I'm giving them the latest link, if that's all right.
Yes, please do.
Okay. So, first of all, hi, my name is Don Wettrick. I'm in Indianapolis, Indiana, or the suburb of, and I am thrilled to talk to you guys because if I think we need one thing, and that is to be more innovative in our classes. So, hold on. And ironically enough, it's Irby.
Yes, he's trying with us too.
Okay, is he joined?
He said he's not seeing anything.
He said he's not seeing anything.
Okay.
Scott Floyd, White Oak told me that he went out and came back in, and then he could see everything. So
Okay.
Irby says he sees something that has no audio.
Okay. Well, that was probably from
give it a
earlier.
second.
Yeah, that was probably earlier because I needed an external microphone plugged in, so I hope that we're all okay now. And now he's not saying anything. All right. Well, we'll try. Okay, so yeah, like I said before, I'm really passionate about trying to make things relevant for our students because I think that we're needing to make the transformation from being consumers of knowledge to producers. And really, the Genius Hour has been the closest thing I've seen, if done well, where students can start showcasing some of the things that they want to work on, and or school can get out of their way because we provide the tools. Matter of fact, I just got out of a media specialist meeting where the media center or the library has the potential of being the hub of activity. Because we might have a lot of equipment and a lot of tools for our students to use down here. Basically, I was brought to this school because we wanted to move away from a traditional library and use part of it to where we have an opportunity to have them work on makerspace stuff. And by the way, makerspace things doesn't necessarily always have to mean tech. We're getting a textile prototyping things in here where if you want to create clothing and prototype that, we have a cooking lab where some of our students can experiment. So a lot of times when people talk about makerspace, they think it's just Arduinos and computers and 3D printers. It doesn't have to be. But essentially what we've done in the innovation class is the first thing you have to do is create a culture that innovation is at the forefront, that everything you do is going to be trial and error, and that failure to not make things work is okay, failure to not try is not a part of it. We spend at least a couple of weeks talking about the fact that we're all pitching in, we have to have a lot of trust, but most importantly, we have to have a lot of transparency. I'm a huge fan of social media. One, because it gets to showcase what our students are doing, and number two, it's also the best way I've ever found to collaborate with great talent. When our students put out a request to find people to work with, I'm shocked with how fast we can find people. You know, case in point, while we were, like the first week of school, we were trying to figure out how to be innovative, and so I didn't want them to start working on individual projects yet, so I had an all-class project. And essentially, we had a driving question of what's going on in Israel, and if you watch one news organization, all Israelites are terrorists, and if you watch another news organization, all Palestinians are terrorists. So we decided what's going on. So we took the media to find great collaborators, and within 2 days we were Skype calling people from both the West Bank and Gaza and in Israel, and getting information from them, because learning from mentors is the best way. Reading about it in a textbook isn't necessary. I mean, it's still valid, but we tried to get innovative with who we wanted to find. So I have found that social media use to collaborate with people and showcase work is necessary, and also tools like YouTube to then further showcase what your knowledge base is even better. But then from there we start. I have my students actively look for their own opportunities, and so when you start having kids that really want to work on something, it's that finding great mentors out there and then having the time and the resources to get some of these things done. I could go over a bunch of the projects we have. We have a variety of things that we're working on. Some people think that Genius Hour has to be tech-driven. It does not. Some people think that the other scary thing is I see a lot of people talking about Genius Hour, and well, actually it's also called 20% time, and a lot of teachers have found that 20% time works for just that, about 20% of the students. And let me warn you on that. Some teachers, and I'm sure this is not you, but some teachers think that, oh, we have a Genius Hour, it's that hour to do whatever you want. So I'll let you guys do whatever you want, and I'm going to go over here and I'm going to check my Facebook account. Or I'm going to go over here and I'm going to play Flappy Birds. And then they're mad at the students when they don't do anything. It's still a major culture shock to our students when you get to offer this time of I wouldn't say free time, but where they have to take ownership of their learning. Just know that you're going to have to. There's going to be some growing pains a little bit, and there's going to be some times where I think the biggest complaint I get is, what do you want to work on? What are you passionate about? I don't know. You tell me. Because for years, we've taught our students to sit down, listen, and repeat back what we just said. And now all of a sudden we're telling them that they're free to find learning on their own, and it's a difficult process at first. Now I have my kids so well acclimated to innovation, some of my kids get mad because they only have time to work on 2 or 3 projects, and they find opportunities everywhere, which is kind of our mantra. We look for problems that need solutions. That's kind of what our innovation class is. So I don't know what you guys teach individually, but I was just talking to a home ec teacher, and she was like saying, well, how do you make the home ec things more practical? And I'd seen a school where they're selling some alternatives in their cafeteria by the things that they're making in class. I've seen them do banquets. I've seen them do catering. I've seen computer science people start working with and networking with mentors that they're finding. So, yeah, I'm starting to run off on tangent. I should ask, what do you guys want to know?
That means y'all can now ask a question if you want to. Do you have a question that you want to ask? Please? Can you see me yet, Don?
I see your hand.
Here. There you go. One of the things we discussed in here is that it's not necessarily about grade level. Obviously, you work with high school kids, but the transition or the concept of even if they're 3 years old, they have a passion of something at that moment, and how do you open it up to different grade levels or across the content to let them have some voice and choice in the matter?
Yeah, great question. A lot of times we open it up to what we call collecting and connecting sessions. Case in point, we had a session a year ago where we started off with the driving question of what do you not like about this school? And they could come up with a list of things. And one of which was, I wish the school could sell coffee. And why do I have to pay $5.50 to go to Starbucks and then bring it here? I wish we could sell coffee in the school. A couple other kids later said, you know, my mom teaches special education here, and those kids are completely isolated. I wish we'd have some activities for the students to, you know, mingle with the regular population. And of course, we're connecting things together, and that's when the idea came. Why don't we have a special ed ran coffee shop? We find mentors in the town that's not necessarily Starbucks, and we can have them train the students, and we can make that a project. And indeed we did. It only took 2 weeks. Now those 4 students were excited about it. They were working with the community, they were working with the coffee shop, they were working with special ed teachers and the students, and voila, it was done. I've seen grade school after grade school, they start off with these brainstorming sessions. Case in point, Andy McNair, who's also in Texas, some of the kids were talking about some of the things that they were passionate about, and these were elementary kids, and one of them said, I'm passionate about ice cream. And who isn't? And so a couple of the kids said, well, yeah, how do you make flavors? So they had some of the kids work with and collaborate with 2 chemists at Bluebell Ice Cream, and they spent 4 weeks on how they make flavors. And after a while, the kids were learning how to do it, and they made 2 flavors of their own unique flavor of ice cream. 2 representatives from Bluebell came out, tasted it, had a whole fun thing. Now, that was student-driven. It was something they were passionate about, and it was a time that excited learners were learning something that normally wouldn't have never have done in school. And a lot of times those constraints lead to creativity. Even if she said, even if it's harder for a grade school kid to say, what do I want to work on, if the teacher wanted to say, hey, for the next couple weeks we're going to learn about making flavors of ice cream, and you guys can line up your mentors. It's a little bit different, obviously, in grade school and middle school on using social media, but that was one of those great cases where a bunch of elementary school kids got together, brainstormed ideas. The other things they did, like a couple other students said, I'm passionate about dogs, and then that led to, we're passionate about dog shelters. And that they learned that in their town they had a dog shelter, that a dog had a limited time to get adopted, and they worked with the shelter and got it to sign off to be a no-kill shelter. That they would, you know, and so even the shelter asked, hey, could you provide us some help in trying to get these dogs adopted? Well, of course we can. That involved community involvement now. That involved them producing little spots to get Fluffy or Buttons adopted. And so all of a sudden these projects that don't necessarily seem just like a project in school, they had the time in Genius Hour to get things that they felt were necessary done. And honestly, that's what really it's about. I only want to do relevant things in my innovation class. And my gosh, if you want to see what they're doing, we update our YouTube page weekly. And my students are now working with people all over the country that I can't get over. I'm blown away by who they're working with. But it's because we ask, we're completely transparent, and there's been a lot of enthusiasm on what we're wanting to do. And I think it's the best learning experience they can get here. I mentioned it in my book that my wife and I were jokingly comparing a class that we grew up with to Ferris Bueller's Day Off, and Ferris had to skip school to learn. School got in the way of his learning, and I don't ever want that to happen, and I think that's why a 20% time is a really unique solution to providing alternatives to say to the students, hey, what do you want to learn? What do you really want to work on? And then having some materials and some time and some places to collaborate to get these things done.
So, Ron, here's a scenario question for you, because I know you face this from teachers a lot who say, but you get to teach this great innovation class. That's different. You don't teach math.
Right.
You're a math teacher now, and you want to incorporate 20% time. How do you do that? What would you do if you were back in the classroom and you were the math teacher who thought, but I've got to teach all of these standards?
Yeah. Well, in my in my class, we teach standards too, except that they take responsibility for their standards. So if I were a math teacher, I'd say, okay, the next 2 weeks we have to cover these standards. You guys research these standards. We'll talk about what they are, and then you tell me what project we can do to possibly demonstrate mastery. Instead of this writing up on a board, is there a practical application? And I hate to say this, there's some cases that there's just not a practical application, which that actually lends itself to a lot of other questions. But I mean, there may be some things that there's nothing you can do to make it fun. And I hate saying that, but there's cases where that's just impossible. But there are other times where you can say, all right, this is my opportunity to work on this engineering problem, and we can make it fun. We can make it interactive. So it's those times where I like to, I don't know, they're the workers, and I say, you know, and open it up to them. Hey, you say you want this to be more practical and more relevant. Here's the things that the state of Texas says that we have to cover. Let's brainstorm of a way that we could demonstrate mastery and have a unique and, dare I say, fun time. That's what, and I've seen a lot of math teachers do exactly that. That while they're working on the math concepts, they're finding ways to deliberately be creative and interactive.
I think that's good. Do you think that there is and we kind of mentioned this before, but do you think there's a limit? And I'm getting some questions, so I'm trying to interpret the questions that are coming over my phone here. A way to, you could say, well, those standards can only be done through certain content areas, that 20% time only lends itself to certain content or certain grade levels. Like I know you have young children of your own at home. So Grant goes to school, and how old is Grant now? He's 5?
Yep.
So is his teacher going to have 20% time, and would you encourage her and recommend it to her and give her ideas even?
Well, and that's partly the reason why I wrote the book, is that, one, if you want to be and I know that a lot of this has to do with school administrations and how willing they are, but if you want a true 20% time, it's their choice. And if you teach math and they want to do a thing on the science of bubble gum, then you're like, well, that doesn't count as math. A true 20% time is unbridled experimentation and a time for them to learn. But if your school administration says you can do your Genius Hour 20% time within your content standards, then yeah, I'm a big fan of having them take ownership of some of their own content and let them get creative. I like brainstorming it out as an entire class and then putting it back into their ownership, saying, hey guys, let's come up together with as a class. You guys sometimes complain that what we do, I mean, how many teachers have heard, when am I going to use this in real life? I don't know. Let's turn it around. When are you going to use this in real life? Let's brainstorm it out. They're going to come up with creative ways. They're going to come up with, although, and it's also interesting enough that some of the kids realize, I'm just going to shut my mouth because being told what to do, while boring, is a lot easier. And that's, to me, the most disturbing thing. Being told what to do, people like to complain about being bored, but it's really easy. Shut up, sit down, and read and write this essay. Okay, that's a lot easier than come up with some creative ways where we could use these desks in English class. Well, okay, it's a lot more creative. Or what are you going to work on? Or what inspires you? What kind of project are you going to come up with? I don't know. That's going to require a lot of my thought. Could you just tell me what to think? And that's my biggest warning to people that get frustrated really fast with Genius Hour. That is going to happen, I promise you. When you all of a sudden tell students, hey guys, you're free to work on whatever you want to work on, I'm here to help and support you. Some of the kids will go, oh, thank God, finally, I'm going to work on, and they'll blow you away. But you're also going to get some kids that go, oh, could you just tell me what to do? Could you just tell me what essay to write? I mean, I've been told that a lot. And normally by kids that have really high GPAs. They don't like risk. They know that if they write this essay, they're going to get an A, and that's going to get them into college. If I ask them to find their own opportunities, there's a risk that they might not get an A, and that freaks them out. But that also scares me why the economy that we have. You know, other than being on Jeopardy, just knowing a lot of things isn't in demand anymore. Just being able to recall stuff is not a marketable skill. Being able to create separates. Everybody can read a book. Can you write a blog? Everybody can watch a YouTube video. Can you create your own? It's going to separate our students, and that's why the opportunities I'm providing for my students, I'm hoping that there's separation. Because when we use social media responsibly, imagine the freak out that some of these employers get when they're, you know, they assume that the average teenager is irresponsible. They come across my student stuff, they're not seeing duck-faced selfies and screw you and I hate everybody stuff. My students are showcasing their talent. And they're showcasing their talent because we have this time to impact their lives. I had a student last year that he was suicidal and 500 pounds. We turned it into a project. We turned it into a project because we wanted to help the kid. And we had this glorious 1 hour. 2 kids had this glorious 1 hour to help one kid and ended up being a whole club because more and more kids kept hearing about it. And then all of a sudden it turned into this walking club and moderate to light workout for kids that are overweight. And we didn't approach them, they approached us. And that's what I love. It's what I live for. I literally, I shouldn't say this out loud because maybe my school will take me up on the offer. If you didn't pay me, I'd show up. Literally. If you didn't pay me, I'd show up because the things that they're doing are blowing my mind. And I'm on this mission to allow other teachers to see the magic that can happen. But I'm also wanting teachers to know that there's going to be a learning curve. You're going to start this and you're going to be frustrated and you're going to be mad. And it takes some time. If you have high schoolers, know that they've had possibly 6 to 7 years of training of sit down, be quiet until I tell you what to do. And it's going to take them a little while to, sorry if I'm quoting Yoda, it's for them to unlearn what they have learned. I knew I'd sneak in a Star Wars reference there somewhere.
There you go. There you go. And I think you really spoke to this group of people in particular when you mentioned the kids that are just used to getting the A. Because many of those kids that we list as GT students are the ones that have the high grades, and they don't want to have to think. We have a lot of kids that don't get put into the GT category who are really creative thinkers. They just don't ever make good enough grades to be considered.
Or worse yet, we just got back. So we were privileged and honored enough to be invited out to Stanford University a couple weeks ago, and then we were also guests at Google and Facebook. And universally, all of them told us. The professor at Stanford gets mad because all these kids, I mean, to get into Stanford, it's the second hardest school to get into. And he says their creativity it struggles. Some of them don't, but a lot of them are professional students. They don't have original thoughts because they don't care about what they think. They want to know what you think so they can get an A. And that's dangerous. That's dangerous. So you're right. If you're working with gifted and talented kids, are they gifted and talented creatively? Can they create? I mean, think of the richest people in the world right now. They didn't finish college because they saw a problem and they had a solution, as opposed to what do you want to hear. And it scares me that we're scaring away a lot of really creative kids because they're not good at sitting down. They're not good at being quiet. And somebody once at a conference said, well, then describe to me an ideal innovation student. And I said, the skateboarder. Those kids are crazy. They get on a skateboard, they break their collarbone, they giggle, they get back on. They do it again and again and again for the sheer passion of it, and I love those kids because they want to work towards mastery. They see value in what they do. Now, they're not good at sitting still, and they're not good at taking direction. They learn by doing. I'm okay with the academic model we have, but just offering a little bit at a time for innovation, a little bit of time of creativity, a little bit of time to impact other people's lives. That's all I'm asking for, man.
There you go. Well, and that brings to one of the questions that was texted or tweeted to me, one that wanted to know, how do you grade innovation?
They grade them. Oh, the short answer is they grade themselves. We have a process where every week they have to blog. So there's weekly things, but in their proposal they tell me what they're going to do. They create a monthly or weekly calendar, and then they assess themselves. Did you hold yourself to your own standards? Did you find out what standards? I don't teach math, but a lot of times we knock out math standards. And so in their reflection, they negotiate with me. You have to have 100 points to get an A at the end of the semester from an innovation class. So sometimes a starter project is worth 10 or maybe 20 points. So they'll turn it in and they go, hey, I deserve 30. And I look over it and I read it and we negotiate. If I say, no, you deserve a 10, and if a student says, oh, yeah, you're right, they didn't do that well. If I said, oh, you deserve a 10, and they go, are you kidding? I did this, I did that, I collaborated with this person, and we're negotiating it out. That is the most authentic assessment I've ever had. I love grading now. One, because I'm not arbitrarily or even creating, I have a rubric, but we even argue that out. Now they have a negotiating skill. Wow, there's another life skill they can have. And so, I also know BS when I hear it. So sometimes they're like, and they give all these buzzwords on they collaborated and I leaned forward and I did all this, and I'm like, oh, cut to the chase. What do you think? And then they all of a sudden have an honest assessment between me and them, and they go, here's what I deserve. And you know what? They grade themselves lower than I do. So sometimes they go, well, I think I deserved a 20. I'm like, dude, after all you've done, I thought you deserved a 25. Well, okay. And if you've ever had students self-grade, that's almost, every now and then you get a kid who's like, I deserve an A, and he doesn't. But a lot of times, they're honest, and they're harder on themselves than I am. And I love that process. Love it.
Awesome. And by the way, Irby just tweeted and said, is there a badge for being a practitioner? He said, do we give badges to each other for this moment?
Yeah, we should. Or at least also get turn it into our health insurance to me it's therapy.
Anybody have any other questions for him in this group? Okay. Dawn, thank you.
Anytime.
We're going to hash through some of this, and the link is available, and I apologize for the crazy at the beginning, as I don't know if you're going to stop Floyd or not, but we were kind of silly at the beginning trying to get all connected.
Yeah.
But some of these people actually have seen you in Compile, and so they were excited that you were going to be speaking with us today, and we will, I know, right? We'll be seeing you again shortly. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, if anytime you guys need anything, you have my email address, and I'm more interested in helping. And for that matter, if you ever want to connect with my students, they're killer. They'll tell you exactly what's up, and they won't. They'll cut to the quick. So if you ever want to get feedback from the students themselves, or if you're a middle school teacher, I can happily recommend some middle school teachers and even grade school teachers that do this kind of thing, and they'll give you the good and the bad and the ugly. But no matter what, I'm here to help if you need anything. Sincerely.
Appreciate it. That's what the collaboration is all about.
All right.
Bye-bye.
We'll see you guys.